welcome to AI in Translation Conversations. This is the first edition presented by Multilingual Media and supported by Language Line and XTM. Eddie Arrieta here, CEO at Multilingual Media, and I'll be your moderator for today. So thank you everyone for joining us on the different live stream channels that we're using today. Some of you might be listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other channels. Some of you might be watching this later on, so thank you so much for doing that. And of course, special thank you to our sponsors, once again, Language Line and XTM. You who are watching, you know the drill. We'd love to know where you are joining us from. Please tell us which part of the world you're on, and introduce yourself in the chat. What do you do? What's your relationship with artificial intelligence? Why are you interested in being part of this conversation? And of course, don't forget which part of the world you are saying hello from. We have hello from sunny Bulgaria. Of course, it's the summer. We have great people. Seattle in the United States of the wonderful America. More people joining us from St. Paul, Minneapolis, Boston as well. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's a pleasure to have you. As always, you are part of this amazing community, and now with AI conversations, with the AI in Translation conversations, we're hoping to reach more people around the world. And let us begin with a little bit of an introduction of why we are doing this. And we have to begin by saying that artificial intelligence has transformed almost every conversation happening in our industry. But what's interesting is that the conversation itself has changed, or not that the conversation itself has changed. Not long ago, we were asking, can AI translate? Today, that is no longer the central question. Enterprise organizations are asking something much more difficult and much more important. How do you build AI into multilingual operations responsibly? How do you know when automation is enough and when people should remain involved? How do you scale globally without sacrificing quality, governance, or trust? And perhaps most importantly, how do you architect systems that don't simply translate content, but become part of the way an enterprise operates? That's what today's discussion is all about. So thank you for being here. Before we continue, I'd also like to once again do a deeper thank you to the organization supporting today's conversation. Language Line, one of the world's largest providers of language access services, combining the expertise of more than 35,000 linguists with technology to support millions of multilingual interactions every single year. And XTM, a leading AI globalization platform that brings translation management, localization operations, software localization, and video localization together in one system. We appreciate both Language Line and XTM for supporting this series and helping make conversations like this possible. Rather than talking about AI as a feature, we are going to explore AI as enterprise infrastructure. Some people can hear it perfectly, and we're reading your comments. Some people say no sound, but others are checking it out perfectly. So fantastic. We have also some people from San Francisco, from Italy. So ciao. That's all I'm gonna say at this stage. We are fortunate to have an outstanding group of panelists joining us today. So please help me welcome Sean Young-Ji, Head of TikTok Localization, Maya Tutunzi, Director of AI Product Management at XTM, and Vikas Chauhan, Principal Scientist at Adobe. Thank you for being here with us on today's panel. Welcome. And I know the efforts we've made to make this possible. We have amazing conversations, and today we're going to get started. But to allow our wonderful audience to get to know all of you, I would love, of course, to start today's conversation with a simple question. Could you please introduce yourself with something that perhaps we might not know about you? How would you introduce yourself, what you do, and tell us something about you that we might not know? And let's do Maya Vikas, and then Sonjun. Thank you so much.
So, hi all, I'm Maggie Tunji. I'm Director of AI Product Management at XTM. I've been in localization technology for more than a decade. I'm originally a computer engineer. Something people might not know about me is that before I was on the side of building solution for localization, I was actually on the other side of the problem. So at the previous company, I was part of the journey as we expanded from 2 countries to 45. So in a way, I spent the first part of my career experiencing the localization problems and the second part trying to solve them. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Vikas,
Hey,
all you.
yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Vikas Chauhan, and I'm a principal scientist at Adobe. I've been in this field for around 10 years, a decade. Um, what people might not know about me is that I'm a reasonably good baker. So I bake a lot.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Sanjun. Yes, you,
Hi.
Sanjun.
Hello. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Zhongjun. I'm based in Beijing, China. A fun part for me is that I studied journalism in my undergraduate, and I started out as a part-time translator in 2008. And another fun fact is that I worked for the banknote printing company in China, which produces the banknotes used in China. So but after that, I started my own translation agency and then worked at Airbnb and then at TikTok. I joined TikTok 4 years ago.
Thank you so
Nice
much.
to meet you all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And of course, our amazing audience, we're also interested in knowing what your experience is so that our wonderful panelists can get an idea of who we are talking to. It's so hard sometimes, when you have a camera in front of you, all you see is the comments. So we are able to see those comments, and it'd be great to know what it is that you do, what is your expertise, which companies you're working for, and perhaps we can continue the conversation a little bit into the future of this one. Of course, for our panelists, as you probably know, one of the biggest shifts we've seen over the last couple of years is that organizations are no longer trying to automate everything equally. Instead, they are designing intelligent workflows that make different decisions depending on the content, the audience, the level of risk, and the desired outcome. So the question today for us is, when people talk about intelligent AI powered localization workflows, what does that actually mean in practice? How do organizations determine, okay, what do we automate in an appropriate way? Where does the human expertise add value, and where a hybrid approach delivers the best business outcomes? And perhaps we could do it in the reverse order this time, Chonjun, and then we do Vikas again, and Maya, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. When we talk about AI today, especially after the first half of this year, I think most of the topics will be around agents. And I think the agentic capabilities of models and the idea of harnessing are game changing because that agentic capabilities let us uh, go out of the domain of chatting with large language models, but going into somewhere we can actually use large language models to do things and get things done. So at TikTok, we're also trying to automate what AI can take over 100%, while let human linguists make the final decisions to enable better AI and greater impacts. Because any human touch can be consolidated into reusable assets in prompts or rules for future AI workflows. I think this is what AI localization means today.
Thank you very much, Sean Yun. Because what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, so the intelligent AI powered workflows, right? So in the past, we used to have workflow engines basically. They used to route the content based on static rules, define integrations, and based on the complexity of the requirements, right? We, uh, I mean, there was like a almost unmanageable number of workflows. Now, this is because intelligence and decisioning was not available at every step. It was embedded in the way the workflows were designed. And but now we have intelligence available at every step. So the same general workflow can serve many use cases now. Now, the routing can be based on risk. I mean, for content with legal, medical, financial consequences, then you involve humans in the loop. Where the risk appetite is higher, then you can run automation. Uh, Audience, like if this is like a brand sensitive thing, then you need humans. Otherwise, you can have a largely automated workflow. So every and on top of that, or maybe at the bottom of everything, is the evaluation layer. So we can't route intelligently if we don't know what is working well. So I think a robust evaluation layer is also needed very much to experiment with these workflows.
That is wonderful, because Maya, of course, we want to hear more about your perspective.
Yes, so automation already existed for years. But localization workflows were essentially production pipelines. AI gives us the opportunity to turn this pipeline into an intelligent system, right? So what we can do today with AI is, okay, generate translations by understanding the context. We can even evaluate the quality. We can assess the potential business risk and identify ambiguous source content. We can curate and improve linguistic assets like TM, glossaries, style guides, explain why we believe something is good or problematic. But most important, we can learn from human decisions, things that we could not do in the past. So it's not about an automated workflow. And from our side, from XTM side, that completely also changes the role of a localization platform. It becomes an intelligence layer rather than just an execution layer. What I think is even more exciting is that localization no longer operates in isolation. With AI and MCP servers and agents, makes it much easier to connect localization with the rest of the business's intelligence and the brain. For example, we can combine localization with product analytics, and suddenly the workflow doesn't just know what content needs to be translated, it can also understand why it matters. It knows that one piece of content supports a critical product launch, while another is just an internal document that it can go straight to production. So it can factor in the business impact, the urgency, and other signals when deciding how the content should move through the workflow. But when it comes to when human should be in the loop or not, each company should have their own requirements based on risk tolerance, content types, regulatory requirements. So there's no one size fits all approach, in my opinion. So rather than prescribing a single way of working, what we've seen and what's our approach is starting from configured workflows where people define the rules. Then we give the observability and control to start building confidence. And as confidence grows, then we move to adaptive workflows. So instead of relying on predefined rules, the system starts making decisions. And we've already seen customers being at that stage. And when we trust AI to make more decisions, we can naturally lead to autonomous workflows, not because humans disappear, but because they focus on the exceptions where their expertise creates the most value. So, yeah, we allow the system to make operational decisions within the policies and guardrails that people have defined.
And thank you so much, everyone. This is a great start to our conversation. For those who are just joining us, remember we are talking about AI in translation. This is AI in translation conversations by Multilingual Media, supported by Language Line and XTM. Please leave your comments. If you have any questions at the end of this conversation, we're going to have a Q&A. We'll try to answer as many of those questions as we can. And if you just got here, please let us know where you are tuning in from, what you do, why do you care about artificial intelligence. Maya, while we have you here, localization, of course, has traditionally been viewed as a downstream function. How is AI changing and the way enterprises think about multilingual? And you have told us a little bit about that, so we can read between the lines. But how is AI changing the way enterprises think about multilingual communication as an end-to-end business strategy rather than simply just a translation workflow?
Yes, so as you said, historically localization has been treated as a downstream production function, right? So we had product, marketing, support teams create content, and once everything was finished from their part, they would pass it to localization, there would be translation, then publishing. And success was measured based on metrics like time, cost, quality. AI gives us the opportunity to rethink the entire model. So if we're talking about end-to-end multilingual strategy, then localization shouldn't start with content is ready for translation nor end when translations are delivered. It should begin with a business objective and end when we measure whether the objective was achieved. So, for example, if the goal is entering a new market, increase product adoption, improve customer satisfaction, multilingual communication should be designed to contribute to those outcomes from the very beginning. So, for the first time, we can easily connect localization with the rest of the business brain, and as we said before, so we can combine language data with customer feedback, support metrics, other commercial KPIs, and understand not just whether the translation was good, but whether it actually achieved the intended business outcome. So that fundamentally changes what we measure. Of course, quality, cost, and speed will always matter, but we can also ask ourselves, did the content improve the customer adoption if that was the goal? Did it help us growth in that market? So those insights don't just improve future translations, they improve future content, product decisions, customer experience. So AI is transforming localization from an isolated step at the end of the process to a continuous feedback loop that connects every team involved in customer communication and aligns them around a shared business objective.
Thank you, Maya. And this is a huge reality of what AI is doing. The end game, of course, being globalization. And it's wonderful because language has allowed for this. AI is transforming the way we think about it. Because historically, of course, and from Adobe, we know the huge experience that you all have on this. But entering new markets usually meant adding people, vendors, and budgets, lots of money. AI has fundamentally changed that equation. How is AI changing the economics of global expansion, and what opportunities does this create for languages or markets that previously weren't economically viable, things that we could not do before?
Right. So, I mean, think about how it used to work, right? So every new market came with a linear cost almost. More languages meant more translators, more vendors, more budget, and more linguistic testing and all those things. And that led to a very specific kind of decision. You would look at a market and then you ask, can the revenue here cover for the cost of serving it properly? And smaller markets, larger markets, the cost for the company was almost the same, right? And if the answer was no, if the revenue wasn't enough, then you simply did not enter the market. So it was essentially not really strategy. It was basically cost, right, in disguise. Um, Customers were there. Now AI has genuinely changed that equation, and I don't say that lightly because for us it's real. It's been like a real like a force multiplier, right? We are taking on work, enabling new languages and products at a scale and pace that would literally have taken us maybe weeks or months to actually do that. We can do it within days now. So we have set processes in place to do that. We can release one product in multiple languages, multiple new languages at the same time in a matter of days. Where it gets interesting is the long tail of languages, the smaller markets, the content that was never really worth translating at full human cost. We can do that now. Earlier, that content used to just sit in English or did not get localized at all because the numbers never really worked. But the one caveat here is that the long tail languages are where AI is usually at its weakest. We are aware of that, but then that's where our platform strength comes in. We have We have very robust evaluation systems that measure quality. We employ human evaluators also for certain evaluations. We have our context studio engine where we enrich every LLM call with a bunch of context that makes errors lesser. And that's just a part of a broader set of capabilities. So the way I see it, the opportunity is not really just cheaper expansion. It's being able to enter markets that were closed, and now we can freely experiment with those markets and see where where the advantages lie. And yeah, so that's my take on it.
Thank you very much, Vikas. Let's take a second to acknowledge everyone who has tuned in with us. I see people from sunny New England as well. We have some people from Utah in the United States, Argentina, Ottawa in Canada, Singapore, Ireland. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Truly a global audience, which is fantastic. We get takes from everyone from around the world, and I hope you're seeing those comments for those of us that are following us on YouTube and LinkedIn today. And I see some comments around we could say, the big elephant in the room, right? Who is responsible for what? What do we trust? What's the governance around everything? And Shanjun, I hope we can start with you on this one. But as AI becomes embedded across enterprise operations, governance becomes just as important as model quality. What governance, security, and compliance capabilities have become essential for enterprise AI deployments? How do organizations decide which content can safely be automated versus where human review remains critical? And we've seen this on regulated industries, and for language access, this is a really important question. So, Jung, if we can start with you, that'd be great.
Sure. When we talk about governance, I think we're already in an enterprise scenario. So for enterprise, the most critical thing is everything should be working in an expected way. So that includes the model themselves. So in the first place, we need to build up infrastructure for controlled model access for everyone in the company. And on top of that, like I said just now, agent is becoming more and more important. Agent and skills and everything. So on top of the model access, we need to build agent platforms within the company for everyone to use. That agent platform can be a single one, unified one, and also can be a separated one for different business goals and units. And also with the model access, unified model access and agent platforms within the company, then the enterprise should build up infrastructure for data filtering to protect enterprise data. And so everyone can be using the models and using agents and using AI in a very confident way. And the enterprise can protect its assets within the safeguard of all these infrastructures. So I think this is the most critical decision companies should make. And another thing about what kind of content can be safely automated, I think if we want to create personalized experiences within a product for our users, now I think most people will think about using AI to generate like various content in various topics for our users. So for these massively AI generated content, I think we can confidently using such AI capabilities to localize them into different languages. I think this might be the first safe scenario that we can rely on AI to get it done. And for the human touch, or the human reviews, I think we should leave it to more critical materials, such as UI elements, such as taglines and slogans and things like that, so that all these things can be fully reviewed by human and inject human touch, inject human feelings into the content to make it more engaging to our users. And all these experiences and all these reviews can be consolidated into AI rules and assets for future use.
Thank you. Definitely a learning process. We've made huge strides on this. From our panelists, who wants to add something to this?
Well, if you want to use AI on enterprise scale, governance has to be part of the architecture from the beginning, right? You cannot deploy and then you do that after. So for sure, there are some foundational things you simply need to have. So you need to know where your data is going, which models and providers you're okay with processing them. Are the data being retained? Are they used for training? What happens when you work with sensitive regulated content? So of course you need proper access control. You should be able to answer, can I reconstruct what happened through auditability, or can I see how the system is behaving, observability? But governance is not what is holding us back. On the contrary, is what allows us to apply AI at scale. So what we should be doing is to translate governance into actual decisions about automation. It all comes down to risk. As we said, not all content should have the same workflow. It might all be translated with the same AI technology, but the consequence of getting something wrong is completely different when we translate an internal knowledge document vs some medical content. So rather than asking, can AI translate it without a human, I think enterprises should ask, what is the risk if AI gets this wrong? And what evidence do we have that the output is good enough? And this is where AI-based quality intelligence becomes really important. So historically, we have relatively limited ways of measuring translation quality automatically. Now we can evaluate many quality dimensions at scale. That means human review can increasingly be targeted where the risk of the quality signals tells us that it adds value. The other important point is that it shouldn't be a static policy. As organizations collect data and signals, they should be able to adjust those thresholds and gradually expand automation where the evidence supports it. So ultimately, I think responsible AI at scale is not about choosing between automation and humans. It's about building a system that understands when it is safe to automate, when it needs additional validation, and when a human decision is still required.
That is wonderful, Vikas. Give us some of your perspective.
Yeah. So, I mean, to maybe expand on one of Maya's points, governance and compliance are probably like, brakes in your car, right? And we all know that brakes are the things that make a car go faster, because if you don't have brakes, you wouldn't go faster. So yeah, I mean, they are really essential. And one of the most essential parts of this, in my opinion, is observability. So when people design platforms, we should obviously make sure that observability is really baked into the platform. And by that, I mean, you can actually see what the system did, when it did it, and why. Because logging right down at the level of individual calls, if something goes wrong, you can then go back and trace it, right? And obviously then there's other things like security, compliance, which we've already talked about, and there's cost discipline. AI workloads get expensive very quickly, so we need to instrument this early on in the journey. And at the end of the day, even if you have expert human professionals, they also need accountability and supervision in regulated fields. So AI doesn't get held to a different standard, a lower standard, because it's a machine. So it needs to basically be held to the same standard. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Of course, because while I have you here talking about governance, trust, how about we talked a little bit about one of the topics that generates the biggest discussions, which is quality. I've heard from some people quality is no longer important. Good enough is good enough, and we don't have to think about it anymore. Organizations, of course, can't manually review millions of words, and then we get into a very strange situation regarding quality, with everything seems to be good enough, and then you can get into the quality slop, I guess, would be the term I would use here. How are automated quality scorings and confidence thresholds changing the way organizations decide when multilingual content is ready to publish? What do you see out there is happening around quality?
Yeah. So quality is actually something that's very, very close to my heart. Everybody wants to talk about the models, right? That's the fancy, the exciting part. But honestly, we have put a lot of our energy in the less glamorous question underneath it, which is like, how well are these models actually working? And how do we know? So, so the shift that we have made is that, so obviously we're not reviewing everything. We are not human reviewing everything. We are scoring everything though, and then reviewing selectively. So roughly it's like this, right? We have a translation quality estimation agent. We call it like the TQE agent that puts a confidence score on each segment that passes of raw output, right? Anything that is output from the LLMs. The high confidence content just gets published automatically. And I'll come in a bit like what does high confidence mean. The lower confidence content gets picked up by we have our automated post edit agents, the APE agents. So that gets picked up by APE agents, which refine it over a few cycles and then score it again. If it makes the cut, then it is published. And whatever still doesn't clear the bar gets routed to a human. And all these steps are, TM aware, terminology aware, brand aware. And also one important thing is that these thresholds that I'm talking about, the high, like high quality, low quality, these are not static thresholds, and they are not one number. They're specific to a content type, they're specific to the language, they're specific to the model, they're specific to even model versions. I mean, the same model family has a different version. We have a platform that keeps on running evaluations and figuring out what are the correct thresholds for each such combination. So it allows us to run our experiments and to figure out these critical data points. So models are becoming a commodity increasingly. What isn't a commodity is your evaluation data and your judgment wrapped around. And that is unique to every organization. And I think that is going to be critical to any organization's success. So yeah, that's.
And Maya, do your clients still care about quality?
Yes, of course, they do. And that's why we give them the tools to evaluate it and decide where human expertise is needed or not. So, apart from what Vikas has said, I would also like to point out that, okay, quality tools existed for years, right? And they were effective in identifying spelling mistakes, grammar, formatting problems, but they couldn't evaluate whether a translation preserved the intended meaning, if it respected the company's tone of voice, if it followed the style guide instructions, was it communicating naturally to the target audience the message. So with AI, we can now evaluate many of those dimensions. So that doesn't just improve publishing decisions on a translation level, which is, of course, very important, but it changes the kind of insights organizations can generate. Those are insights that simply weren't available before at this scale. So now organizations can identify which languages consistently struggle with style guide compliance, which products generate the most semantic connections, or whether changes to their linguistic guidance are actually improving quality over time. So once quality becomes structured data, organizations can use it to continuously improve. So it's not just a matter of whether these translations should go on production or not. It becomes a much, much more important insight that organizations can use to improve their localization workflows and behaviors.
I have to confess that This is a very exciting conversation, and we have some great questions that are coming in. So keep your questions for the Q&A. And time flies when you're having fun. So we are soon gonna be coming to an end of our conversation. So if you have any burning questions, please put them in the comments. We still getting audience from around the world: Egypt, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I see there as well, and Montreal, Canada. Like I said, a truly global audience. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and this is a very exciting conversation. In fact, when the whole let's say AI bubble, and not in the bad way, but in the positive way, finally came and bursted, and everyone started talking about AI. I think it was end of 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Was it end of 2023 or end of 2022? End of 2023.
2020. Well, 2022 November was when Chat GPT was
With
released. So that,
ChatGPT. Yeah, and then
yeah,
2023 we started talking
yeah.
about it, and in fact I thought that was going to be, we were thinking about the last issue of the year in 2024 for 2023 for multilingual, and we thought, oh, let's call it the year of agentic. And then someone internally, one of our advisors said, well, maybe we should call it the year agentic fail to fulfill the promises. And because most people were just using large language models and then, calling it agentic and just having a lot of humans do a lot of things. We've come a long way since then, and I love, you are in the game. I love to hear your perspectives, Seong Yun, Vikas, and Maya, on what is the difference, or how can someone differentiate between what an actual autonomous localization agent is versus simply using a large language model, which a lot of companies are kind of like doing these days. So if we could do Seong Yun, Vikas, and Maya, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Maybe everyone still remember the early days of these AI waves. For the first thing is ChatGPT. It educates everyone that you can talk to some bots to get some answer, and then I think everyone was like excited to build something like a knowledge base to let the models to learn from, and then using that materials to answer your questions. And then here we are, we're in the agents era. So with agents, with more and more powerful large language models, and more and more agentic powerful agentic capabilities of these models, the agents can use various tools like searching, coding. It can interact with terminal, even with your browser, to get things done. And I think this changes everything. So it's way more powerful than chatting with large language models directly. So for enterprises and for internal localization teams, I think what we need in this agent era is agent-friendly toolings. For example, we need agent-friendly content management system. We need agent-friendly translation management system. And also for localization teams or LPMs who manage all the localization jobs, we need to consolidate our practices, SOPs into skills. Then using agent, using skills, and to interact with these agent-friendly platforms, then we can get our localization needs really autonomous, and then to release humans' productivity to focus on more systematic things, on more harnessing, on how to harness all these capabilities, and how to fine tune these platforms and agents and skills. I think this might be the trend now.
Thank you, and from our other panelists, what do you see?
Yeah, I can go next. So, so the difference between agent and LLM, right? So, in the agentic or in the AI landscape that we have now, there are multiple layers of orchestration. LLM is at the bottom of that chain. An LLM is basically a large language model that has a single capability. I mean, it's fairly complex, obviously, but you give it an input, it gives you back some text, right? You ask it to translate a string in our use case, and it translates the string. An agent is a system that is built around that capability. So the difference is planning and execution and access to various tools. An agent can pull up, this MCP server, that API, this desktop tool. It can access all the data that you provide access to. And instead of translating one segment, an agent can also take a goal, some goal like localize this release for 10 markets and publish it. So it figures out the steps, calls the tools it needs, it acts on the results, and keeps going until the job is done. For the specific purpose of translation, it will issue a prompt to an LLM, and that's it. So the LLM is one part inside that loop. The agent is the orchestration around it. And obviously agents themselves are orchestrated, so there's multiple levels above that, but I think essentially that's the difference. Yeah.
Thank you, Maya. What do you see in this agentic conversation?
Yeah, with passive AI, the user is still driving the process, right? While agentic systems go further, they can understand the goal, determine the actions, use different tools that might need it, what's the source of information, and most important, they can continue until the task is completed or ask for human input if it's needed. So the important difference is the ability to reason across multiple steps and make decisions rather than simply generating an output. But this autonomy in the enterprise should not mean operating without control, right? So human supervision remains essential, even with agents, particularly for sensitive decision. So in practice, what I've seen is most organizations are adopting agents gradually. So they start with agents that prepare work, gather information, and recommend actions. And over time, as organizations build confidence in the systems and define clear boundaries, agents can take on more. Also, agents can speak one to the other, which it's great because they can combine different steps of different processes. They can exchange intelligence, and this is why it's also very important to have a platform that's API first. You can have everything through MCP and have the tools to connect to multiple agents.
And being able to connect, of course, relates to a new buzzword, I'd say, from a year and a half. Well, for a long time, we've talked about this, which is orchestration. And we're very curious, Shanjin, to see what it is that you do at TikTok, if you do any orchestration. But what is your take around orchestration? Many organizations now use multiple models, multiple systems, multiple services simultaneously. Why is it more valuable now than translation itself, if we can put it that way? And is it a new intelligence layer inside the enterprise? Do you concur with this? Do you agree? What is your take from what you do?
Yeah, I do agree that orchestration should be the new intelligence layer inside enterprise localization because, like I said just now, I think more and more systems are supporting agent interactions. So with all these capabilities of these platforms, I think the most critical quality of as an LPM is to be able to build up solutions, localization solutions for a certain localization needs, or even for certain business needs. So that means we need to upgrade our roles of client-side localization team from a delivery team to a governance team. So because like everyone in the industry say in the past, like, I don't know how many years, localization is way more than just translation. And it becomes even more so in the AI era, because we need to be the one to harness the AI translation capabilities and quality in the company. So we need to find out our position in the product development cycle and content pipeline so that as to be the real guardian of quality AI outputs. And we need to mitigate major AI flops and risks and to identify areas to improve AI. All these need orchestration of tools, of assets and workflows, because that is what we have. We're like cook. We need to cook a delicious meal for our guests using what we have in the plate. So as localization team, as an LPM, what we have is these tooling, these assets and AI and agents and everything. So we need to figure out how to orchestrate all these.
That is wonderful. And like I said, we're almost coming to an end of our conversation. So if you have any questions, we are now deciding on our private chat what questions we're going to put in there. So our panelists and our team is going to start, taking some of those. Don't be offended if we don't get a chance to answer all your questions. We'll try to make sure that we get back to you in some way, shape, or form. But before we get to that Q&A conversation, if we can talk about multi-model architectures, Maya, Vikas, Sanjun, many enterprises are intentionally avoiding dependence on a single AI model. Just at the base level seems like a very smart decision. Instead, they are building systems capable of selecting different models for different tasks, and you get the specialized models for different specialized tasks. What advantages do you see in multi-model architectures? Or what do you think they provide over relying on a single large language model? And we can do Vikas, Sanjun, and Maya. Or did I already say an order? Please go with that one.
Okay. Yeah, I can start. Yeah. So there are definitely a lot of advantages to having a multi-model strategy, and there are a couple of aspects. One is that one is the aspect of choosing the right model for the right job. So there's no single model which is best at everything. They vary by language, they vary by task, and so the first advantage is quality, right? Route the engine that is best at that task. Route that task to that engine. Now, second is cost. I mean, you don't need to use like the very expensive model for a task that can be accomplished by another model. So you can send high volume, low risk translation to a cheaper model, and maybe a higher risk translation to a more expensive model. And then obviously you have the point of resilience. If one model fails, then you have a backup model. You can design your architectures in such a way that you have failovers. And also model versions keep on changing. So the pace, right? So you're building to switch whenever needed. So that is also an advantage. The other aspect is what is increasingly being called like an LLM jury. So the same task carried out by multiple models, and then you have an intelligence layer on top of that, deciding which output or what is the consensus. You can obviously design it in such a way that there's a consensus that is driven, or if there is no consensus, then you go with a lower confidence threshold and things like that. So yeah, I mean, all these are advantages of a multi-model strategy.
Wonderful, Maya. What
Yes.
is your take on multi-models? And then we go with Sanjun.
Yeah, actually, Vikas covered most of the cases I had in mind. So we can always check one models with the other, like the jury, as we said, and instead of having to choose one LLM for everything, the system can increasingly choose the best model based on criteria, the language, the content, the risk. While I have to admit that because we are doing that, it's not an easy task to be able to check LLMs again and compare LLMs and run tests that are valid and you can rely on. So having a multi-LLM approach, it's great, but I think that it's best that you can rely on someone that has expertise on that, and you can rely on them that they will choose what is the best LLM so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel from scratch.
Yeah, and I will cover this topic from another perspective, which is data perspective, because now we have like not millions of like models, big or small, but all behind all these models are data, and the data used to train these models are different, and the way different companies build all these models are different. So all these differences decide that the capabilities of different models are different. So like Vikas said, we should rely on, we should make use of the advantages of a certain model in one way, and maybe we should use another model in another way. So just like what we use to do translations for different languages. Previously, I think everyone knows that there might not be a single model that can translate all languages in the equally good quality. So I think this also applies to all these large language models, because your needs are different and your scenarios are different. So and the model themselves are different. So you need to find the right combination to solve your problems. So I think that's my take.
Thank you, Shanjun. Thank you, Vikas and Maya, for once again joining us today, sharing with us your insights. We will want to have you with us. For those that might not know, the three of our panelists today are part of our collection of interviews, AI in Translation, which is a book published by Multilingual Media, supported by Language Line and XTM, free to download online, and we will share the links in the description for everyone who wants to download the book. We have some questions from our audience. If you still have some questions, please share them on the comments. We have a few minutes to answer those questions. So if it's okay with our panelists, I've already shared some. If this is a no, just let me know. But we have a few questions for each of our panelists. Sean-Yun, the first one is for you, from Sriram. And he says, video localization is shifting from heavy post editing to almost instant processing. The event agenda emphasizes building reliable AI systems through risk-based human oversight. As this TikTok scales globally, how do you balance rapid AI video processing with human oversight needed to maintain cultural nuance in fast-moving media?
Thank you for the question. I have to clarify that at TikTok localization, we don't localize user-generated content like videos. But maybe I based on my experience and observations, maybe I can share something here. I mean, for video producing large language models, there are different models in the market. And I believe to make these models production more to let these models produce more culturally relevant content or videos, you need to build a proper like framework or agents, or at least at some proper carefully curated prompts. So I think that's one way to make sure that the models produce the things that you want. And on the other hand, I think the excitement of this AI era is that imagination can be released like in millions of ways. So that means anyone with any idea, they can use whatever model they'd love to use to produce content for everyone. So I think this is this also this has already enriched the possibilities of this media era, because now I think we have way more content to consume like before, uh, than before. So I think, uh, and because everyone can create, so you don't have to worry too much about the diversity or cultural nuances, because these people, everyone has their own taste, and their production can reflect their taste.
That's a really good point, Shanjun. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. And the next question for Vikas, I've probably seen maybe 5 articles on this already, so we might get another article out depending on your answer, Vikas. What is your preference? Build or buy? Which model gives you the best quality?
Okay, so build or buy? Definitely buy. Creating and maintaining a large language model is a very, very costly affair. So, yeah, I mean, there are certain things that you can do in-house, but even hosting, right? I would say don't even host, because um, those massive machines with the high-end GPUs serving, even, I mean, that does not give economies of scale. So we've been pretty happy, buying. And as far as quality is concerned, that's a very loaded question. Which model gives you the best quality, right? Like, what is quality? So, for example, I mean, there could be one model that can maybe translate 100 strings, and then a model which evaluates and says that, okay, one string is really good, you don't need any human to look at it, it's great. But and that accuracy is maybe 100%, but is that really good quality for evaluation? I mean, there are 99 strings which may be okay, but there's probably a high number of false positives. So do you want to optimize for minimum false positives or maximum volume? So things like that. So my advice would be, I mean, especially to companies which are going, beginning their AI journey, build your evaluation before you scale anything. Because how will you tell whether a system is working, and define what quality means for you and for your use case and for your for your domain. And do not overbuild. Like, hosted models, managed services can get you far with little capital, and later on in the journey, maybe you can there might be some opportunities to maybe host something of your own, if that works for you. But definitely, uh, building a large language model, if that's the intent of the question, is probably it needs to be really thought through. So I think the investment should be in your people, in your proprietary data, in your systems, not in infra.
Thank you very much, and we have time for one more question, and we apologize for those that we haven't had the time to answer. But we'll look back at your questions and see how we can get to those. Maya, I think this is a question at the heart of languages and the fears that some of us have had and have written about. And it says as following: at the bilingual level, dealing with content, how do you maintain linguistic engagement about the human here? There can be a perception that AI LLM systems are taking over the entire of translation, or the entire task of translation, which leaves the human where? As a glorified data entry. Very interesting way to put it. The description so far talk about the systems. This is the second question. Learning, are you talking about dynamically learning systems adapting to each piece of input feedback, or system that must be trained on some kind of like regular schedule? And how expensive is training learn? That's a lot of questions. So Maya, please choose whichever angle you want to take on this.
I will try to answer all. So about the linguist, I actually think that AI can make the linguist role more challenging and more interesting rather than reduce it to data entry. With technologies like TQI, for example, we can give linguists much more context than they had before, identifying potential quality issues and explaining why something may be wrong and providing suggestions. So the human is being asked to exercise more judgment and not less in this case. So the role shifts from finding every possible issue manually to eventually interpreting and making the right linguistic decision, focusing their attention where human judgment it genuinely matters. When it comes to learning, I'm referring first to the mainly to the first part. We're not talking about constantly retraining models, which can be expensive, as the question says, but also it relies on static data, while the truth is that this data is very dynamic. So modern systems can adapt through context and feedback without retraining the underlying LLM. Via context curation and prompt tuning, as we call it, using enterprise knowledge, previous translation terminology, style guides, and human feedback dynamically. So the system can become more tailored to the organization, while the foundation model remains unchanged.
Wonderful. And with this, I'd say we've come officially to an end of our conversation. Thank you so much for giving us 4 extra minutes of your very valuable time. So unless you have anything else to say before we go, Sean, June, Vikas, Maya, any final thoughts, any goodbyes, any happy thoughts, proverbs, anything you want to share?
It was great being here. Thank you.
Yeah, it was
it's
great
my
experience.
pleasure being. Yeah, and I believe everyone in the room and in the industry can grab the opportunity in this agentic era and do something to change the game.
Thank you. Sonjun, thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Maja, for joining us today. It has been a great conversation, and I hope we can repeat it soon in the future. Thank you, everyone who has joined us from all around the world. It's been wonderful to receive the reception of a global audience like the one we have in our amazing industry. Once again, I'd like to thank our panelists, Songjun Yi from TikTok, Maya Tutunzi from XTM, and Vikas Chauhan from Adobe, from sharing their experience and insights with us. Thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for future AI in translation conversation. If you've enjoyed this one, please be sure to follow Multilingual Media, Language Line, and XTM on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Instagram. Comment, share so that others can find us. And we'll continue exploring how AI is reshaping multilingual communication across enterprises. Thanks again, and see you next time. Goodbye.